technical glitches there, but I think we're either all on or most of us are on. Want to point out this is a budget workshop, the last one before the state of Arkansas law requires us to have a budget for fiscal year 2021 in place. So this is a budget workshop. This is the last budget workshop, I guess, for the fiscal year 2021 budget. So the fiscal year 2020 was extended, for those who don't know, until the end or till February 1st. For that statutory deadline goes out at midnight tonight. We don't have an option to extend it under state law. So this would be the final budget workshop, and I want to welcome, I believe, KJIW, the Daily World, any other media, and all of our or any of our guests. Thank you for attending. And so, having it, since it's a budget workshop, Mr. Turner, our city treasurer, I'm going to turn it over to you and ask you if you would to start the process. Thank you.
Okay. Well, I sent a revised copy of the budget. I had to make a couple of small corrections, and I got it to the council members yesterday afternoon. So hopefully everyone had a chance to look at it, and they were okay with the changes. I sent an email describing what the changes were. And so if anyone has any questions, or if there's anything else that they need to know or want to change, open it up for discussion.
I have a question, Mr. Turner.
Yes, sir.
Hey, listen, good afternoon.
Yes, sir.
Just for the listening audience, clarify that the mayor said the mayor has to present a budget, right?
Yeah. Yes.
And the city council has to approve the expenditures in his budget.
The mayor is obligated by law to present a budget to the city council by December 1st, and the city council is obligated by law to adopt a budget by February 1st.
Yes, sir. And can you also help me with this one? In the police department, how many officers are funded in the police department?
Current in this budget?
Yes, sir.
25 police officers.
So will you answer this question? So has anybody defunded the police department, Mr. Turner?
It depends on what you define.
The number, what the mayor narrative is that the city council has defunded the police department. You got 25 officers slotted for the 2021 budget, right?
Yes.
So how many did we have last year?
You have slotted.
Slotted.
Yes. You had appropriations for 32 officers last year.
32. Okay.
Yes.
So as now explain this to the listening audience. Mr. St. Columbia has always said for the number of years we can go back and appropriate funds for that department, right?
Yes, you can. Yeah, you can change the budget tomorrow if you want to.
Right. So as the mayor hires, if they can get up to these 25 officers, the city council will go back and approve the 30 if he can get 25, even if he can get 20. Am I correct about that?
Yeah. Yes, sir, Mr. Franklin. That's the council's prerogative. Yes, sir.
Right. So we need this. So the listening audience can establish to understand that where we're going. So when they holler about defund, that's just one of those tactics because nobody has defunded anything. Right now, how many officers that we have right now? Do we have on the street right now?
I'm not exactly sure, Mr. Franklin. How many? I know we hired a couple of new officers just recently, so I'm not exactly sure how many we have right now.
Okay, so that's one of those things, and just want to make sure because when people try to say that. So, because the city council gonna get blamed for whatever anyway. If a snowstorm comes, the city council did it. If the building leaks all night long, the city council did it. So I'm trying to make sure that people understand that this city council, the police chief said it in a meeting that the city council has given him everything that he needed, everything he asked for. The city council have approved that. Am I right, Mr. Turner? Everything that the police chief asked for, having the city council appropriated for him.
As far as I know, yes, sir.
Okay, so because I just want people to understand that the city council is a part-time position. The mayor is a part-time position. The treasurer is a part-time position. The city clerk is a part-time position. And what people think, oh, would they just do? No, we're working to make sure our city is safer and better every day. So I have some more questions for you later. I don't want to take up too much of the time, but I want to make sure somebody else get a chance to ask some questions. But I do want to say, Mr. St. Columbia, you know how you always say we can go back and appropriate funds. We can take that out and come back and add it later. Ain't that what you always say, Mr. Joe?
Yes, sir. I'd like to have the floor for a few minutes if I can. Are you finished?
I just want you to. I'm glad you answered that question. Yes, sir. I'm done.
Okay. As I understand it, we had last year appropriated for 32 slots. Is that correct in the police department, Mr. Turner?
Yes, sir.
And now it's been being reduced to 25, cutting out about 7 slots in the police department. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
How many police officers do they have at the present?
I'm not sure. Like I stated to Mr. Franklin, there were some recent hires, and so I'm not exactly sure how many they have right
Well,
now.
maybe I need to address that to the mayor. Mr. Mayor, how many police officers are we paying for today?
We have 20. We have, well, you're talking about uniformed and non-uniformed that are patrolling, certified law enforcement officers.
Of those 32 slots, how many are filled today?
20.
20?
Well, 20 patrolmen, that's right. To patrol and
20.
non-uniformed
So
officers.
we've got 20 slots filled, and we still have 5 according to the new budget, 5 more that we can fill. Do we have 5 more that we can put in those slots? Prospects?
Well, so we're constantly hiring.
Okay.
Hiring police officers is always a challenge. I guess to clarify, the issue is not how, that way there is an issue about how many we have and how many we fund, but the issue of what happened when there was a budget workshop and the recommendation was to remove those positions was that the positions that we created a few months ago for promotions and raises for existing police officers to move into. We did the same thing for the fire department. In fact, we had to come back and do it again because there were some errors in it.
As mayor,
And so what actually happened was we reduced we took out those new positions with promotions, and we are in the middle of the process of promotions. They've taken one test already. And so that takes it back away from the mayor and the chief. And yes, we can go back to the city council when somebody wants to be promoted and we want to give a raise and do it on an individual basis. That's certainly always the case. But in that workshop, and I'm not sure who all was present, I was not present, but I listened to it. And the phrase, so we are defunding these positions, the question was asked, and the answer was yes. So the term defund was not mine, but was used at the meeting where it was done, and I wasn't even there. So are we reducing the budget for the police department? Yes, you can use whatever phrase you want. But the part that is disturbing to me is that we held out this promise of promotions and raises for the existing police officers, and we created a path to promotions and raises, and then we removed those that night. And that is the question, not just, the question of how many total is always an issue and always important. And of course, who wouldn't want to have as many as we can hire and we can afford? But, police officer is something that everybody recruits hard for. It's one of the hardest things to recruit for nowadays. It's always a struggle. And we always wish we could have more, and we're always trying to get more. But the issue, as far as I'm concerned, to clarify it, is defunding or taking away the promotions and raises that we adopted a few months ago and began that process, including a test at the college for officers who are in the middle of that process who are on the payroll now. And so, yes, we can always go back to the council, but that is the issue. We approved a process for both the fire and the police department, and we've kept it for the fire department, and it's worked well. From what I can tell, from what I'm told.
Mr. Mayor, could I interrupt you just?
Yes,
As chief executive officer of the city, how many slots do you feel we need to leave in the budget for this year, next year? What do you feel? Do you feel we don't need to cut any, or do you feel like we can get away with cutting a few, or what is your views on the number? What I'm trying to.
Well, I mean, we're at 20, and of course it ebbs and flows throughout the year. But I think we could get to 32 for sure, and I think we should always strive to get to at least 30. I think 30 is a reasonable goal. We are at 30 in the fire department. We have 28. We need 30 to qualify for reduced insurance rates in our city, and we're working hard to do that. And even in the fire department, it's not easy, because you don't just hire anybody. You hire the people that make the most sense, that are the best fit, and of course are qualified. And that involves background checks and drug tests and all that.
Sure.
The only thing worse than hiring somebody or not having somebody in a slot would be to have somebody in a slot who you don't want, especially in an important position like a police officer. So it's you don't just hire anybody. So 30, I would say, would be a reasonable goal. It is the goal for the fire department. It's a little easier, but still not easy. And I think 30 would be reasonable for the police department.
Mr. Mayor, for clarity, one of the practical issues, I understand the concern of everyone and want to promote, but so that we can have a candid discussion about this, the promotional process, there's in the police department, there's an absence of leadership. And to be specific about absence of leadership, the majority of people you have are corporals and below. And so there are no lieutenants or captains, and many of these people are not going to be promoted from, you can't promote from corporal to major. And so the issue is most of them are not going to be promoted all the way up to all of those slots in the first place. The council should consider also looking at, if you're expanding the officers, expand them where you have the people to come in at the entry level, because the person to have a leadership role must be qualified to have a leadership role. And so even if you would promote tomorrow, they're not going from corporal to major. And so that is a practical issue with that. That is not to disrespect the police department. When I say absent leadership, I mean those places are there. There's a vacancy in leadership, probably be a better way of saying that, because that is the issue that you practically have. Now, in terms of the defunding, as I have had numerous conversations with Don Ethley about this over the past 4 or 5 months. And Mr. Ethley and I, we were the ones talking about this on the record. And when I talked to Mr. Ethley, what he knew what I was saying, and I knew what he was saying when we were having the conversation. Because the vacancy in leadership and the lack of those in the higher position and the monies that had not been spent, what Mr. Ethley had talked to me about, and Mr. Franklin also discussed with me, was utilizing the funds for sky cops and et cetera. One of the things Mr. Franklin talked to me about was the vacant code enforcement office, because he wanted to address the council, but he hadn't done it in the budget, but he wanted to come later. And because someone needs to watch all the cameras. There's no good in buying extra sky cop cameras if you don't have a live person there. So there have been numerous conversations with me as city attorney, asking me about the legality of it one-on-one. And so when I had the conversation with Ether, he was talking to me about sky cops. He was talking to me about the use of code enforcement. He was talking to me about using money in the police department. That is the context within which we were speaking. And also to further explain that the city council has not taken that money and placed it in another department because it was not their intent. I also, when I became angered, I am the last person that wants the department defunded. Understand something. As city attorney, my house has been shot on 2 or 3 different occasions. I've laid down on the floor with people shooting. I want as much help for the police department as possible. My mother's house was shot twice. Once she was shot in the arm. I am the last person who wants the police department to lack all of the things necessary. So the conversations that I had with Mr. Etherly, with Mr. Franklin, were about making the department better. And that is why I was so offended last week when I talked about, well, 2 weeks ago on the 19th, when the issue of defunding, because defunding is related to some larger issue, is never my intent or Mr. Ethel's intent that I know of, because I spoke to him on numerous occasions. Understand something. In the neighborhood that I live in, other people in, we hear gunshots. We understand what goes on in the community. Every night I'm hearing a gunshot, and I can almost estimate, well, that's 2 blocks, that's 3 blocks, that's 5 blocks, that's 7 blocks. That's across on the other side of town. The last thing that we want is defunding. And I've had many conversations with Ethel and Mr. Franklin, as I said, individually, about what can we do to get more sky cops. We need people to be able to watch the sky cops, look at it. I want to make sure that as much of these crimes are solved and many people are brought to justice as can be brought to justice. And that is the overarching thing that I have. And so when people talk about that the intent is to defund, that is not the intent. Understand something. Mr. Etler had talked to me. He called me one night because he had to run and get his daughter because they were shooting right there outside of his neighborhood. And so Mr. Etler said, talk to me again and said, I told him, man, I know where you been. I know exactly how you feel. I've been there. I've done that. And the one thing about it is, from that point on, when he was running with Taylor to make sure that bullets didn't harm her, didn't harm him, this issue is very personal to us. This is not some talking point. This is not something that we're trying to that we don't feel what the community is going through. That we've been there. We understand. So it's never the intent to defund the police. It's how to make the police better. And so that's part of the reason I was so angry. I said, okay, we're here. What can we do to try to go forward to make it better? And what we're doing is not the best way. Einstein said, if you continue to do the same thing and expect the different result, then you're foolish. And the one thing that we're doing is we keep doing the same thing. We're not doing something properly. And that's not to accuse the mayor, the chief, or anyone, anything. My whole thing is this: what can we do to get more officers, and how can we do it better? As I stated again, and when we look at the positions that they're looking at, most of them are at the upper level where if the person take the test today, they will not be promoted to lieutenant. They will not be promoted to major. It won't happen because they won't be qualified. And so if we're going to have a candid discussion about it, have a candid discussion about it. But the thing about it is, I think that everyone needs to take 2 steps back. And then let's start looking at what can we do for the better community? How can we make the police department more effective? I think everybody on this line wants the police department to be effective. The only question is, how do we get to that place? All of us have ideas. We're tired of just having meetings. We want solutions. And so we as a community can work together to make this thing better. And that's the only thing I think that the city council was interested in. When I made the statement, I was, talking about a practical issue as to how you're doing it. And the city council, if you notice, even in this budget, has not taken that money and placed it anywhere else. And so that is what the context was, and that is what we're trying to do. And I think that while everybody is passionate about it, I think the thing is this: all of us going forward, how can we do it better? Because what we're doing is not working. The fact that they had 32 positions and it didn't fill them, it's not working. The fact that we have what we're doing, the question is, how is it that we have all of this money and cannot attract police officers? And so everybody, from the mayor to the city treasurer, to the city attorney, to the city council, all of us need to take 2 steps back and say, okay, what we need to do is something different. I've had people to call me and talk to me about, why don't you do a police department job fair? Why don't you do something different, because the way we're doing is not working? Is there a way to restructure the police department? Is there a way to do a thing? And I think at this point, I'm so exasperated that I'm willing to do anything that will work. I've told the mayor privately on numerous occasions that he ran against my brother ran against him. But I want to do everything possible to help him be effective, because we cannot afford for him to be a failure as mayor. I've said that to him privately, and I said it to him now publicly. I've said it to him numerous times. And so my whole thing is, how do we get to where we are the most effective police department that we can be? And with that said, I think the thing is, tonight, you all should adopt a budget and continue to have the discussions. Why don't we set aside a meeting? Maybe we can set aside the second meeting in February to say, hey, we're just going to deliver a police department. But let's look at this and look at it from a structural standpoint and stop yelling at each other and go forward and get it resolved.
Well, let me say just quickly, since I was mentioned so much, I take your comments to be sincere, and I appreciate them. But what we did several months ago was have this discussion, and the chief, who would not say today that he's in favor, and does not say, and has said many times and publicly that he's not for this, when he made the comment about, you've given me everything I've asked for, this was probably back when we were doing this. We talked about restructuring the police department. We talked about the vacancy of leadership. We hired an assistant chief who's done a good job. And we set up this promotion process with raises, and tried to remove the politics as much as we could, or the insinuation of politics, by having a third party like the college to proctor it with merit. And we did have that discussion, and we did restructure it, and we did agree to do it, and we had that conversation. The problem I have is that at that budget meeting that I did not attend, that very thing was in the budget that I submitted, was quote unquote defunded. That was not my word. I wasn't even at the meeting. It was your word. So I'm just saying I disagree with it. I think that if you want to know what we can do, I'd recommend you listen to those who have spent a lifetime in law enforcement, like Chief Smith, who made these recommendations several months ago, and who is in the middle, and we are all in the middle of the process of doing the promotions. But now that's being ripped out from underneath us. So we can have that conversation all over again, but we're just kicking that can down the road. We've already discussed it. We already approved it. It's in that budget that I submitted, and it was removed. And that's the issue, not how many. We all wish we had 32 police. We all wish the shootings would stop. We share all of those concerns, and I don't doubt anybody's motive or sincerity. But we had this discussion, and we made a decision, and I was proud that we did. And we did it based on professional law enforcement recommendations and a plan in writing. It was thoughtful, it was thorough, and we're in the middle of it. So it's not a good time. And finally, that is the thing that we're doing differently that we haven't done before. That is the thing that we think will attract more police to these positions, because they'll have we'll be opening up new positions as we promote inward, we hope, mostly inside the police department. And we'll give them a path to promotion into a career, and that will help them be attracted to the opening in the other positions. So that was the point of the whole thing. And I don't understand. I don't understand why we're taking it out. I don't understand it, and I can't support it. Having said that,
You'll have a
I'm
vote too.
so I'm not going to belabor it any longer. Y'all have to pass a budget, and I'm going to get out of the way. But I want you to know how I feel about it.
For clarity, I'll say this finally. Other people you're talking about be promoted from corporal or from patrolman first class to major to lieutenant. And that's the whole point that Mr. Ethel was talking about, is many of your things have been taken out at the top. And so as they're promoted, they could be placed back in. But I'm going to step out of the way and let the council have that discussion. I just want to say that with clarity, because you referring to me when you said I used the word defund the position, but I was talking as a practical matter that they are still in the base pay and they just have to be funded. So I think that as relates to it, I just wanted to provide clarity as to what the discussion was in a calm manner. And so City Council asks y'all to go forward and do whatever that you all are do. This council meeting and we're here for one item.
This is Chris Franklin. I have this for the police department. When we hired Chief Smith, and he was asking to receive the raise that he got, at that time we had a couple of officers who were trying to get promoted, and what they said at that meeting, since the Mayor Smith has been in office and since the chief has been here, all those officers that were supposed to be promoted under this administration has been fired. So every officer that we do have is new. There's nobody has have over 10 years of law enforcement experience that's in that office besides the part-time people. And my thing is this, when we talk about police officers, you have to really look at it. I've never been in law enforcement. I don't think the mayor has ever been in law enforcement. I don't think anybody on the city council has a law enforcement and has a degree or any work history in law enforcement. So I leave that up to the chief. The chief did say that the city council has given him everything he needed to keep the department going. My only thing is this: since I wasn't at the meeting either when they were talking about when the mayor said they would use the term defunding. I was not present, but what I will say is this: as a person who has been an innocent person who's driving down the highway and somebody opened fire and almost shot me like shot my vehicle 4 times. I've yet to get any resolution from the police department about that. I figured that since I was on the city council, at least that gunshot could have shot me in the back of the neck. It went through the back of my windshield, through the steering wheel. It went through the back glass, out the side of the other window. I could have lost, if my daughter and my son had been in the truck with me, they would have been dead. From that day to this day, I have not heard from the police department. I had to get somebody from the state police to go with me to the Tourist Information Center to look at the video. And the mayor and the city council, I have sent this video. I'm pretty sure everybody that's on the city council did you all not view that video that I sent out? I know I sent it in a group.
Well,
So my thing is,
I didn't
Mayor,
see it, but I'm
yeah,
aware of it.
Mayor,
Did you submit a police report?
yes, I did.
So there's a police report of that incident.
Yes, it is. And Mayor, you know of it because
Approximately when did it happen?
Mayor, you can talk to the police chief. It's out there. You knew about it because guess what? I sent the video to everybody in a group chat, just like you all send the Zoom meetings out. I sent it in the same thing. Mr. Turner, did you see that video?
No, sir, Mr. Franklin, I haven't seen it.
Well, Mr. St. Columbia, Miss Crockett, Miss Ford, and Miss Davis, and Mr. Ether, did you all see that video that I sent a couple months ago? My vehicle was shot in as I was driving, going to the Delta Culture Center, and I was passing the Tourist Information Center. But we're not here to talk. I'm just bringing that up. That it's a lot of things.
Approximately when was it? And I'll check on the police report. Okay. If you're saying on the police report, tell me approximately what. And I'll have it.
Let's handle this right now. But I'm just bringing that to you. You have my cell phone number as well as I have yours. But you know the incident happened. My thing is this: it seems like it's a bunch of we're being divided because the mayor wants something, and we're willing to give it. But the thing of it is, you don't have the people to promote. There's nobody. Mr. He's not here. Mr. Van was fired. Mr. Bailey was fired. Some more officers have left the department who were Mr. Covington. He left the department. All these, you got more than that who officers been here for 10 and 15 years, veteran, have been fired. So who can you promote? So there's only one person that I see that you all are trying to promote, and we all know who that is, and we know why we're trying to promote him. I don't get into day-to-day operations, but the mayor, I've tried my best to respect you. I've talked to you one-on-one to have a respectful conversation. It always goes the wrong way because you feel like that you're right. But this is all of our city. This is just not one person's city. This is all of our city. And I think when my constituents speak to me, I'm trying to serve them the same way that I'm trying to serve the whole community. I don't represent just one Anderson Street. I represent the whole Helena-West Helena. And these private groups that get out here and talk like the city council is not trying to help you, that's untrue. We have to come to some common ground to work together. It's like you saying these promotions, but Mayor, as Mr. Valley has said, there's no one to promote. You can't get Janie off the street and promote her to a major or lieutenant. So my thing is this: let's work together. And if you find we had civil service. Reason why the fire department did what they did, the fire department did their testing. When we gave them permission, they didn't sit on it like the police department did. The fire department went ahead and did the testing and everything they need to do. They have not when they said once they get the overtime under control, they started putting their people in place. The police department, you had to wait till February 1st to pass the manual that you all said you wanted. The police department just went, the police chief and the internal affairs person just came back from a seminar or a training or something that you and the code enforcement went on. So all this being said, how do we don't know. We don't get into day-to-day operations, but looking at what you're asking for, you don't have the people. And if you come back, if we get down a year later, 6 months later, and you got people to promote, let's promote them. But now let's get this passed and let's stop pouring the blame game, because you said that you hired the police. So if you don't have any experience in law enforcement, I thought the police chief hires who he wants, who he feel like that's competent enough to pass the background check, the mental evaluation, and the exam that you said the college has gotten together. So I wish that it stopped being like pulling teeth, that you work with, we all work together. Instead of you saying, this is what I want, this is mine. This is not your budget. This is the city's budget. And we're working to make sure that everybody get what they're asking for. When you got a department that's spending $2.1 million, and then you find out that you're not filling the positions, and you find out that you all have ducked some money off to the side under the landfill, it's unreal when, as Mr. Valley said and others said, we're laying on the floor and you hire these people real quick. Now you hired them real fast now. But you could have did this 6 months ago when they shot in my vehicle. You could have did this 3 months ago. You could have did it in October when we started working on the budget. You could have did it the other day when they shot over here on Davila Street when I was trying to help somebody out and deliver some. I had to jump over behind a house because they were shooting. We got a sky cop. People, we need to try to, and I'm gonna stay on task. We need to come to a common ground to do stuff together and stop letting this be a pulling teeth. You trying to grandstand, and people, as you say, I'm trying to grandstand. Why don't you just say, hey, let's pass this budget and stop trying to hide stuff, and let's just do what's right for the people? Because I'm pretty sure that once all this is over with, the people who are well off can move to Northeast Arkansas and live better and abandon Helena. That's what's gonna happen, because the only people gonna be here are the poor people and the people who can't go nowhere else. So what we should try to do is stop blaming each other and let's work together. So by that being said, Mayor, I know you finna talk, so I try to talk a long time because I know you got more breath than I got.
Are you through? Are you through? Mr. St. Columbia, I believe you had a question.
Maybe we can adjust this thing a little bit and compromise. Of course, it looks like 7 positions different between the 32 and the 25. Maybe we could go say 28. Would that hurt anybody if we just compromised and get the bad budget passed and compromise and set it at 28? And that way, if you can hire the people, we could put them there. And we want to promote, but and we want to educate our people. And I think the college will work with us. We're not defunding. I didn't take it as we were defunding anything, because the money's going to stay in the police department. So it's not a defunding of anything. Just a matter of where we're going to put our money to do the most good. And would that be reasonable, Mr. Franklin, if we could compromise with the mayor and say set it at 28 for now?
Thank you, Mr. St. Clair. I think we should leave it where it is. We have compromised enough. I think that the mayor should say, hey, let me show them that I can get to 25, and we'll be happy to come back and give you 5 more. But we have compromised. The mayor has not compromised with us. He presented a budget. You've been on the council for years. You remember in previous administration, we would go line by line, and if we didn't like something or you didn't like something, we compromised, we cut it. Here we are now. We didn't have 30 officers 6 months ago, not even a year ago. So what we need to do is focus on this right here. Let's see what we can get to 25. And if we could get to 30, he could come back, as your famous words. He can always come back, and we appropriate that money right back where it needs to be. But right now, let's pass the budget with the 25 and let's move forward. If the mayor come back at the next meeting, at the next city council meeting, say, hey, I've gotten those people. He has my blessings. I'll make the motion, and I hope you second it to give him some more people. But right now, why would we do that? That's how we found this money that was set aside, because we haven't hired anybody. Now, when people say the police department is for the salary, let me help you all out with that. Mr. St. Columbus, you know as I know as well, that some of those officers have brought home checks of $50K or better. So when you're talking about the police officers don't make any money, sometimes they don't want to, sometimes they're not funding positions because people can bring home bigger salaries when they don't have that many officers on the street. That's how some of these officers have made $50,000 and $60,000 salaries, because the overtime. So let us do the right thing and pass 25, and as it needed, we'll come back. That'll make sure that we don't have to come back and ask the city treasurer, where are we on overtime? We have to think about this. That if we do 28, we'll come back and find out we still at 20 6 months from now. And you always said this, Mr. St. Columbia, and I respect you about this. You always said this: we can always come back and appropriate. So, your words, can we come back as the mayor presented and appropriate those other 5 positions as needed? Right now, he says up to 20. Well, if 2 weeks from now, he said, I found 10 more officers, or I found 7 officers, or I found the 5, I'm willing. But right now, this is where he is. He's got 20. So let us roll with the 25 that's in there. And if you can find 10 in the next 2 weeks, I'll appropriate the other for the 5. But right now, I want to stay at the 25. That's just me speaking, Mr. St. Columbia. But those used to be your words. We can always come back and appropriate. Am I right or wrong, Mr. St. Columbia?
We can change the budget tomorrow. We can change it any day, and we've always known that, and we have in the past had to make adjustments in the budget. That's a known fact. It's nothing I invented.
I understand.
Yeah, it's there. It's the law. It's the law, and we can always adjust the budget. I'm just trying to get a budget passed, and I want us all to get together and work in the same direction. We need to push in the same direction. You mentioned, and I think Andre mentioned about shootings and all. Of course, I don't live in a bulletproof house. My neighborhood's been shot up here too. My lights have been shot out, and they've had to come replace them. And I asked the man on the pole when he was replacing them why the lights were out. And he said, well, look, I'll show you. And he did. There were bullet holes all through the light up there. They shoot the lights out so they can come burglarize the homes. So it's in my neighborhood too. It's all over town. It's not just where Mr. Valley live or where you live. It's all over where I live as well. So it's all over our community. We share the same problem everywhere in the community. And
Yes, sir.
I think everybody on this council wants better law enforcement, and we're willing to put the money where it's necessary. I just want to get our budget passed, and I want, if they come up with 25 officers tomorrow, I think this council needs to pledge that we will support the police department and give them the money necessary to hire more and more people and to promote within. And that's where we need to do. I think our starting pay for our police officers is too low to start with compared to other areas. We need to put a carrot out there so people will go after it and want to come to work for the police department. I think dodging bullets is a lot more dangerous than putting out a fire. I know they have problems in the fire department, but if I were to take a choice, I'd rather go to work for the fire department before I would the police department for the same amount of money. But we need to make it even higher so more people will go and join the police department, and we can hire young men out of college and out of high school with education that can write tickets and fill out these reports. But we need to hire a better class of people to start with. But I'm willing to get a budget passed here tonight. We need to move forward on this thing and try to work together. That's all I have to say. Thank you, Mr. Franklin.
Yes, sir. Ms. St. Clement, can I say this? I have to say this. The city council does not control the hiring, and we're not trying to control the hiring. What we're trying to do is just like city treasurer, you can agree with me. The overtime was $100 and some thousand, and we had less officers. We could use that. We could use that money to offer better salaries to our employees. But when people said the city council is not, I don't want to hire anybody. I told the mayor before, the mayor can hire his cousin, his brother, whoever he so choose, and the chief can hire whoever he wants to hire. That has nothing to do with me. But what is my concern is I fund those positions. And I know what those officers have brought home. Mr. Turner, you can agree with me that we have paid the police department some nice salaries. Am I correct? With overtime, because we have lack of officers. Am I right, Mr. Turner?
Yes, sir. Some of the salaries have been in, I don't know about 60,000, but I think a couple of them have been in the $50,000 range.
Thank you. So when people decide to say that the police officers don't make any money, that's untrue. I mean, when you have less, I think, and if the police chief was here, I would ask him the question. You kind of like not having a whole full roster of police officers because you can pay those salaries of $50,000 and $40,000 that you want to pay. Because the less you have, the better the pay is, the more overtime we can accrue. So when people talk about the city council want to hire, we do not want to hire. That's how people are making 40 and 50 grand because you have less officers. So what happens is the officer who's working the most shifts are tired. But they want this money because you can't go nowhere in the surrounding areas and make that kind of money and be right here at home. You can't go down to the prison and make $50,000 coming in through the door. So the members that's on here, the people that the audience that are on here have to understand this. We're not trying to hire anybody because I don't care who you hire, as long as they can read, write, and understand and make their tickets legible and their reports legible instead of telling you when they do a report, here, you write it. So I want to make sure we have the best of the best. Our money may not be the best, but guess what? It's a good thing to be in Helena-West to have a decent job, a respectable job. And me as one of the members, I'm not trying to control who the mayor hired and fired. I stand behind the 25. Mayor, if you can get more than that, come on with it. I'll be happy to make a motion at the next meeting to approve the other people you have. But right now, I stand at the 25 and I yield back.
Okay, so obviously I don't agree with the characterization of any of that, but y'all already know how you're going to vote. So, I mean, I would suggest, Mr. Turner, that we move forward.
I have a question. Mr. Mayor, can you provide us, our regular council meeting is tomorrow. Can you provide us with a list of the 20 officers that we have in the department who are currently on the streets, as well as their hire dates? Can you email that to us tomorrow?
I will certainly make an effort.
Thank you. What's the resolution number, Madam Clerk?
It'd be number 2.
Move to adopt resolution number 2 as presented.
Second.
Okay, Mr. Etherly made a motion to approve the resolution as described. Who seconded the motion?
Mr. Franklin.
Mr. Franklin seconded the motion. Any other discussion, comments about the resolution? To
For
be clear,
clarity,
Mr. Etherly.
For clarity,
Mr.
that's the budget resolution, correct?
Yes.
Be the budget for fiscal year 2021.
For clarity also, this is the city treasurer. I sent the city council a revised budget as of January 31st, 2021. Is that the budget that we're referring to, the revision that I sent you guys yesterday?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh,
Any, Mr. St. Columbia.
I only have the one that y'all sent me and brought to the house. What difference is it?
There were a couple of changes. One was that Councilmember Davis suggested that we give all of the everyone gets the cost of living increase, and we add the cost of living increase on top of the minimum wage. And so when I was doing my budget revision, there were 2 unfilled positions in the police department. There were unfilled dispatch positions, and I inadvertently added the 3% COLA to that. So I took that 3% COLA off of those unfilled positions.
Those are the only changes?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, any other questions or comments about the motion? If not, call the roll.
St. Columbia,
Yes.
Crockett, Forward,
Yes.
Etherly,
Yes.
Davis,
Yes.
Franklin,
Yes.
Crockett.
Yes.
I have 6 yes.
Okay, motion passes. Is there any other business we have to do?
I move we adjourn.
Second.
Who seconded? No, Mr. Etherly? I didn't
Franklin.
hear that. Who seconded?
Franklin.
Who seconded? Ms. Ford?
Mr.
Who
Franklin.
seconded that? Mr.
Franklin.
Seconded. All right, Ms. St. Columbia moves, adjourned, Mr. Franklin seconds. Any opposition? If not, meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much. Have a good evening. Thank you for all who
Everyone have a
attended.
good evening.
Thank you, Mayor, for being so good, gracious to us.